it's incredibly tragic, and it's been all over the news. And this story, not only for this really, really awful situation for the family, but it was also for the general public, because many people will be affected by the loss of Archie. It will trigger memories and emotions in so many people who perhaps have been grieving either recently or many, many years ago. So what we want to do is to, first of all, let people know that there is help and that there is hope. Under the Good Grief Trust, we have hundreds and hundreds of tailored support services. And we know that grief is completely unique. It's like our DNA. It depends on the relationship that we've had with that person. And we don't know, nobody knows, until you've had that bereavement, how it's going to affect you personally. So please do, first of all, reach out to a charity like the Good Grief Trust so that we can find you support very early on, because we know that early signposting to tailor support is absolutely key. And we want to let this family know, and anyone who's been affected by this story, that there is support out there when you need it.
I mean, Linda, it is just so sad for absolutely everybody involved in this story. It is the death of a 12-year-old boy that we're talking about here. But in this case specifically, the mother fought two legal battles, the family fought two legal battles, one about not switching off his life support, and then the second one about moving him to a hospice. So it was only really in the past few days where Holly Dance, Archie Battersbee's mother, started to actually accept that he would die. How difficult is that on the grief journey to be what some people would describe in denial, fighting for him to stay alive for so long, and only really in the last 2 days did she actually think that he might die? It's happened quite quickly for her.
It certainly has. And sadly, no matter how a person dies, a child, an adult, it's always incredibly traumatic. And there is no hierarchy with grief. Sadly, Archie's mother has been nursing him and looking after him, and the hospital themselves have been through that incredibly difficult time. And we don't know that after, obviously, sadly, Archie's died, how it's going to affect Archie's mother, her friends, colleagues, family members, and the wider network, as well as those health professionals. And even through sudden death, it's incredibly difficult. We can't accept it. The shock can last for years, not just months. There is no timeline for grief. So if you've been nursing somebody through a terminal illness or a life-limiting condition, it can have so many different effects on you personally, on your health, on so many aspects. But please, as I say, please know that you have to take it step by step, very, very slowly steps going forward, because grief is with you forever. As I said, there is no timeline, and we want people to know that please just take it easy and try and reach out for support if you can, as early as you can.
You mentioned the health professionals. I mean, they're used to dealing with death, which is going to be beneficial in some respects. The difference in this case is that whether there is intrinsically some criticism of them in the way the legal process that has been gone through here. So clearly the family believe that the health professionals were not doing all that they could do. So how do they deal with this, knowing that, as health professionals do, that they were trying to do the best for this child, but knowing there is criticism and unhappiness within what they have done from the family?
Well, hopefully, and I'm sure this is the case, that those nurses and doctors, palliative care, end-of-life teams will be sitting down with that family and will be going through the process. What happened? How did it happen? Why did it happen? That's the best care that we can possibly give. We work very closely with NHS Trust, the Good Grief Trust, have a card, a condolence card that is given to the family at the moment of death, and it signposts them to help. And hopefully, and I'm sure this is what's happening, is that team will be sitting down with the family and trying to unpick any issues that they have. Clearly, there have been so much trauma around the death of Archie. And there are many other families across the country who may feel very similar feelings and feelings of guilt and that burden. And it needs to be unravelled by the health professionals holding the hand of that family very carefully carefully and very gently. And it will take a long time. It really will, because the shock and the trauma of grief is happening today, but it will happen next week. It will happen after the funeral and possibly many months and even years ahead. But we're sure that those health professionals will do the utmost they possibly can. Yes, they do deal with grief and loss every day, but it, as I said, it's completely unique to that family. And I really hope that Archie's family will be supported, and I'm sure they will be.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. Can we just take it away from this case? Because I was just struck by the fact you talked about people who, you know, are sort of on a long decline, if you like, where death is expected. And that may well apply to people who are watching or listening right now. There can be, in some cases, almost a sense of relief at someone's passing, can't there, that suffering has ended. And yet, with that, for those left behind, also a sense of guilt that they're feeling relief. I mean, that's a very difficult situation, isn't it?
Grief is fraught with a myriad of emotions, and it's incredibly complicated. And as I said, you won't know how you feel until it happens to you. You know, you may have the police knock on your door with a sudden death, or it may be sitting alongside somebody who has a terminal illness for months ahead, and just thinking and wondering and being so anxious and so concerned about what is going to happen. But as I say, we don't know until the time of the death how it is going to affect you. Yes, you can feel relief, but again, exactly what you're saying, you can feel the burden. But there can be joy. There can be joy. Grief brings so many complicated emotions. And please, whatever you do, whatever you're feeling is right for you. There is no judgment with grief. As we say at the Good Grief Trust, it's completely up to you how you grieve. Sadly, there are many assumptions around grief. If somebody's laughing and they're joking, that perhaps they're over it. We don't get over grief. We move forward and we take those people with us in our hearts. So as I say, please do look on the Good Grief Trust. Look at all these incredible charities and support services, the helplines, the videos. Whatever is right for you is right for you. And please reach out and try and find a way through to navigate this grief, because it is incredibly painful. And actually, post-COVID, we've now learnt, thankfully, it's probably the only thing that COVID's brought a light on, is the importance of reaching out to people who are grieving, who have had a bereavement today, tomorrow, and ongoing.